You've helped many veterans and families find behavioral health care. What have you learned about the invisible battles veterans face after service?
When you say helping many veterans and their family members, the rush, that is the thing that charges my batteries the most. Like there's some aspects when you're looking at P&Ls and challenges with implementing electronic medical records that are happening in the hospital and implementing multiple things. When you get a call or that you've been able to help a vet or their family members be able to seek treatment, or someone a loved one in general, there is a sense of kind of like an endorphin that hits my body that I've never been able to replicate in anything that I've ever done before in my life.
Unfinished business, stand up tall, alpha K.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. There's a special kind of discipline a Marine Corps uniform gives you that never fades. It's not just how you follow orders, it's how you move through pressure, how you notice what others miss, how you steady a room when it starts to panic. That kind of training leaves an imprint. It becomes part of your wiring, not just in how you lead, but in how you serve long after the mission ends. For Drew Carlton, that imprint became something new. A Marine who once measured success in precision now measures it in people, in presence, patience, and trust. His mission didn't end when the war did. It evolved. At Mesa Springs Hospital, that evolution has formed. Discipline became design, structure became safety, and leadership grew into something far quieter, the art of helping others heal. That's where our conversation begins, with a man who carried lessons from command into the language of care and built a place where both could finally exist. Brother Drew, it's awesome to have you on Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. When I read that intro, what was one thing that you said, oh my God,
Bro, I've never been talked about like that before in my life. So I kind of thank you for that. That was incredible. But yeah, no, I think everything that you talked about resonated well. When you talk about transition, that is, I think, the area that it can be the most challenging and risky for vets. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of tell my story about that.
Yeah, let's do a brief, little bit of brief background on your military experience, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I went into the Marine Corps in 1999, so went to boot camp in Parris Island. I was actually going to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. So Parris Island being about an hour away. That was a very easy bus ride over to Parris Island. And so boot camp, and then I was 03. I knew I wanted to go into the infantry. Ultimately, my grandfather shot for the Navy on the Navy pistol team, so I wanted to be a scout sniper. And that was from day one. That was my goal. I grew up on Tom Clancy books and those types of movies and things like that. And so I knew that that's really where the direction that I wanted to go in. So went to boot camp, then went to SOI, and then got assigned to the fleet. And, what I've known about scout snipers is that you had to try out, they had to select you. They had done a pilot program that if you had a first-class PFT and you shot expert while at boot camp, the commander could just put you in that platoon. And so when I got assigned and I got to 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines in Hawaii, they automatically put me in a scout sniper platoon, and I was terrified, absolutely, because, you kind of want to build up to that. And I know that my seniors had been in that place where they had to try out for it. They had to spend their time in the platoon. And so, I was met with a lot of resistance right when I got put into the platoon, because I didn't have to go through the in-dock and stuff like that they had to go through. So ultimately, we, the ones that were selected for that, got a kind of a rude awakening by the seniors that actually put their time in. But so obviously, if we kind of know the timeline of American history, 99, kind of in a peaceful time, Kosovo's going on, then boom, September 11th happened, right? And so life changes completely. It was interesting to kind of see what happened. And from one day that you kind of go from a peaceful environment, and then overnight you're just like potentially going, you don't know where you'll be deployed. And so, we heard movements of some people being mobilized, perhaps Iraq, perhaps Afghanistan. We got sent to the Philippines. It was a very short period of time, and I think it was like one of the very first missions of enduring freedom. But it was in comparison to what other individuals have gone through, like where they spend their entire enlistment or their commission in a wartime environment. Mine was a very, very brief period of time. And so, looking back on it, there was a lot of, I've experienced a lot of guilt because, I got stop loss for a short period of time. And in order, there were folks out of California that were going to be going to Iraq, and our juniors that were there, they were like, yeah, let me go get reassigned and go get deployed. And so when we got stop lost, and then all of a sudden if you wanted to get out, you could get out. I always wanted to be an officer. Like that was one of those cycles that I wanted to be able to go through. And so I opted to leave and go to Texas A&M and then enroll there. Those are those types of moments where you sit back and you have a little bit of guilt associated with that. And so you see the other people go off and go get deployed. Still today I think about that, right? Where would my life be any different had I gone through that process and never decided to get out and continue to deploy? A lot of great Marines that I knew went down that route. But those are those things that kind of you wake up and you try to figure out, what would be different had I decided to have stayed in. And I really genuinely feel that God chose this path for me, and I listened at the time, fortunately. I've been able to help in ways that I would never have been able to had I decided to go in that particular trajectory. But to kind of go back after I went to Texas A&M. I decided that I was going to be a lawyer. That realized I really didn't like reading books that much, and I knew that that's a big important aspect of becoming a lawyer. Then I decided to go to nursing school, and so I worked overnights in a psychiatric hospital, and so working overnights while I was going through nursing school, and I remember the challenges associated with that, but. My goal was I was going to be a flight nurse. I wanted to get on helicopters and pull people out of cars and stuff like that. So after I graduated nursing school, I got a job at the local emergency department here in Fort Worth. And, the most critical element that a emergency department nurse can have is to be able to start an IV, and I could not start an IV to save my life. And so it was they would generally stick me with the psych patients because I would always like to talk with the psych patients. Working with psych patients, your ability to be able to communicate, be empathetic, is the equivalent of being able to start an IV on somebody that's completely unconscious and bleeding out, right? And so I realized at that point that might be where my calling would be. And so I transitioned from the emergency department into becoming a psych nurse full-time, worked my way up as a unit manager, chief nursing officer, and then ultimately I realized that I like the business side of that aspect too, and leadership. And so chief operating officer, and then ultimately led me into becoming a CEO of a hospital. I was able to do that within 4 years after graduating nursing school. So along the way, there were a lot of speed bumps, a lot of lessons I had to learn, a lot of failed relationships with friends, with significant others. I think that right now I finally kind of got all those important pieces all together. And so kind of the culmination of all those challenges where I'm really kind of reaping the benefits of where those speed bumps had led me before in the past.
I was that's an amazing, first of all, that's an amazing, journey for sure.
Appreciate it.
You covered in 3 minutes, right? There's so much backstory to that, right? Yeah. I want to rewind for a second and when I first started this, I said you carried the lessons of command into the language of care and built a place where both could finally exist. Was that statement on point?
Man, I tell you, it's beautiful. I don't think I could have said something any better, Rush, because when the lessons of command, when you find those individuals specifically, that I was surrounded with the Marine Corps, it was the servant leadership that was the strongest. So obviously there was that built-in respect. There's individuals that have already been there, done that, had graduated sniper school, or were just rock stars in general, right? By things they've done previously. Often you saw those individuals be willing to be the first one to be able to raise your hand to be able to do that, right? And so taking those lessons specifically and translating that over to within the first week of taking a new assignment as CEO of a hospital to getting a mop and mopping up an area where a patient had been able to spill. Some of the feedback that I get, or I'll hear, 3 months afterwards, starting that, I remember that day that you picked up a mop, and I remember when you did that, right? And a lot of, I had a blessing of when I started out, in behavioral health, I was mentored by individuals that actually work for me now that are in the same role that they were, 17, 18 years ago. Yeah. And so they actually work at the hospital with me, and I remember when you started out on your first day. And so kind of full circle, but, to kind of bring back to what the point you're trying to make is those initial examples of servant leadership and mentorship. That is what has been carried over and resonates most well for where translating that over into the healthcare field.
That's awesome. The question I have for you is kind of very specific, right? When you think back to your time in the Marines, what part of that experience still shapes the way you lead now?
Man, again, I would have to say it's that piece of the servant leadership that I was able to be exposed to, and translating that over into the way that I lead and that they see me lead on a daily basis.
Yeah. You spent your life in very structured environments, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you realize leadership also needed something more human, like empathy?
Yeah. So you take the military perspective of we always heard something: mission accomplishment first, troop welfare second, right? I think that the challenge from transitioning from the military environment, because that's built in, right? You understand that. Everybody understands, hey, mission comes first, and then your needs come second after that, right? Yeah. When you translate over that into the healthcare, you have to learn how to blend that together and create that for your teammates that work underneath you or work aside from you, your peers. How to blend those two together where they all stay in line, right? And that's the biggest challenge, because if you have teammates that obviously it's weird to call them civilians because I've been a civilian for so long, but civilians that work that work there, if they don't feel that you care about them at the same level as the hospital or whatever organization that you're associated with, they won't trust you, right? And if they don't trust you, if they don't trust administration, that carries over and that directly impacts the patient, right? Yeah. They come in, they're pissed off already coming into work, they're mistrusting. Doesn't matter how much money you spend on a Christmas party or what you try to do for morale around the organization, they won't trust you. And so you have to learn how to blend that and be able to communicate that effectively.
Yeah, that's a unique, one of my friends said, what you did in the Marine Corps it won't work. So, it's
I hope I can hop in and say that I learned that mistake, unfortunately, very acutely. And I walked into an organization and several years ago with that mentality, right? And I was recruited into a position, and they had said, "Hey, here are these problems, and if you can fix these problems, your career is wherever you want it to take from that point." And I immediately came into an organization without trying to build the respect of the individuals that ultimately were on my leadership team. Yeah. And immediately started finger pointing. So you're not doing this. You're not doing this. You're failing here and there. And it didn't take long to realize that to understand in the military, you're given a rank. But in leadership in an organization, if you don't have the buy-in of those individuals, they will turn on you, or they will make it into an environment whereby nobody is happy and working. And so I learned that lesson very quickly. And that's, I think we were talking about this earlier, is I've learned so much more from my failures in order to be able to where I feel that I'm functioning at a higher level, that had I not had those failures, I don't think I would be near the person I am today.
Yeah, my friend Wanda Y. Williams has a term called humanized leadership. Is that on point?
Yeah. Yeah, it couldn't be any closer.
Many veterans struggle to find purpose after service. What inspired you to make behavioral health your next mission?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into it, Rush. It was, my trajectory is I thought I was going to be a flight nurse, right? I wanted to be on the helicopters and doing that. And then I realized that, I couldn't do what was necessary at that particular time. And at the speed that I wanted to be able to get into that. And kind of, I feel that behavioral health found me in that perspective. And so, there's a lot of individuals that will talk about, the reason why I went into mental health is, I had challenges in my family, or I had this, or I had that, right? And these personal experiences, I didn't have that, right? It literally just found me, and, for wanting to be able to and enjoying to communicate with individuals, especially when they're struggling, right? That is how I feel that I kind of maneuvered into that. And so I say behavioral health found me, as opposed to a lot of people that kind of say that from that perspective.
Well, how would you define behavioral health?
Oh, man, it's the most holistic form of healthcare possible, right? So there's aspects of medicine or healthcare that are very, very specific to the part of the body. Behavioral health encompasses your physical health. It encompasses your emotional health. It encompasses your environmental health. All of those aspects, which is what makes behavioral health so nuanced, because if all of those aren't in sync, ultimately your wellness is going to be affected by that. And so that's why I think it's the most challenging to be able to treat too as well, because you have if you got diabetes and your blood sugar is 300, right? You can take a shot of insulin, it's going to bring it down, right? You have experienced a life of trauma for 20 years, right? And something triggers you, or it pushes you over the edge. It's not just as simple as getting an injection. It's not something as simple as, hey, I'm going to take an antidepressant and everything's going to be fine, right? There's other pieces and other notches and other therapies that have to happen in order for you to be aligned with your wellness.
Yeah. I told you when I had the opportunity and the privilege to go down to Mesa Springs.
Thank you, by the way. Thank you.
That was amazing, man. Like, mental health and behavioral health has been part of, as I shared with you privately, that behavioral health has been a part of my continual recovery program, and how it forged new paths for me to be able to host this podcast and write down and just do different things and just cognitively change the way I look at life and the way I think about things. So I have admiration and respect for you, but it was such a amazing, it was crazy that you and I crossed paths.
I know, yeah.
Because we have interrelated in this, we connect in this way. This is a funny question. Do you ever notice yourself leading your hospital team the same way you led Plains, and what parts of that mindset help you, and what were parts that you had to learn? So love that question. If I can circle back to what you said, I actually do want to thank you for telling me what you did tell me, right? Yeah. And I appreciate you being as open and honest, and which, like I said, it led to a great friendship and moving forward. So thank you again for being so open. And man, what an incredible story you have, Rush. And I know a lot of people know your story, but I kind of where that huge mistake where I went into an organization without building that relationship or rapport with the individuals and immediately started finger pointing. You can't do that, right? Yeah. There's not too many environments that you actually would be successful in. I've worked for leaders that do that too, and it doesn't resonate well. And it's tracked very easily by attrition, right? You see an organization that has a massive amount of turnover, and then they hire new individuals. You can have turnover for particular reasons. There could be alliances with the I love the director and the director just left, and maybe they want to go work for the director in a different environment. But if you continually see these repetitive cycles of attrition of your teammates that are leaving the organization, you need to kind of put the brakes on and identify where those challenges may be. But I love the fact that my team recognizes that they love that I love being a Marine, right? So they get excited on November 10th. And if you guys don't know, November 10th is the most hallowed day for a Marine. Like it is, I get more excited for November 10th than I do Christmas, than I do
a lot of, major holidays around there, with the exception of my kids' birthdays. And fortunately, I have my wife, her birthday is November 10th too as well. So kind of like so that was a fun conversation when we first started dating. But I think that they know what it's like to be a leader. And when I work, I've got a tremendous amount of therapists that work directly, that report up to me. And they understand that I'm kind of very straightforward, and I try to have direct communication because I don't feel an organization can be run well if you can't have hard conversations, right? If you're constantly having to tiptoe things around, you won't have a good organization because the trust is not there, right? So if you say, hey, I really need you to be able to get this, and accomplished, and you always have to be able to end that, how can I help, right? What barriers can I remove, or what do you physically need me to do in order to help you get that accomplished? And so whenever I try to give that, I always end up saying, how can I help, right? Because there could be something in order for that to be accomplished much faster by some of the actions that you're capable of being able to do. Well, if you could make this phone call, or if you could get this person to respond to me from corporate who I've been emailing for the last 2 weeks because, they've ghosted me about that. And then you find out, and then, whatever you need is done at that point. So, that aspect of they appreciate that I'm a Marine, and they work around that, and they understand that I don't use a lot of therapeutic languages. Words of affirmation are not necessarily my love language, right? And they understand that, and they appreciate that, and they embrace it.
Yeah.
So that, I would say that's how that translates.
Well, for the record, I think you're very articulate and
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
charismatic. How you carry yourself and how you articulate what you have to say. What was I going to say? And I was thinking about it as we were talking, like they probably know you've been through some things too. So you have that armor of that breastplate of life experience to support
humility, right? And humility, I think you hit the nail on the head there. My most difficult piece was transitioning out of the military, and the mistakes that I made leading up to getting into leadership, right? And so I'm very open about, some of the things that I've endured or I've experienced. And so that's something that I'm very passionate about. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that.
Absolutely. Mesa Springs runs with such calm and precision. At times, maybe when I was there, I just I don't know, but when I was there, it felt very calm, and it was just, I could tell it had that precision. What did you want people, patients and staff, to actually feel when they walked through those?
Exactly what you just said, right? That's the critical component. Behavioral health is one of those aspects where one day could be completely on fire, and the next day could be so mundane, right? You really never know what you're walking into, especially, Mesa Springs is a 24/7, it's considered a Class B emergency department. Our doors never shut, right? We are constantly accepting patients. It doesn't matter if it's raining, we have no close days. So somebody that comes into crisis on a Monday could look somebody, the 7 individuals that show up in crisis on a Thursday is completely different. And right, what we talk with our team, and specifically the senior leadership team, is you have to have that era of understanding, and because your teammates are always looking at you and understanding, if they're looking at so much of your subliminal body language, if they see you panicky, it's going to resonate with them, right? So we're constantly in check. And, I think the most important meeting I have every day is our morning flash meeting. That's a 9:30 morning meeting. I have each one of my senior leaders report out on particular what's happening in their department. And if I notice that one of them is a little bit more anxious or not giving eye contact, or some of those things that I feel will translate to the individuals that report up to them, I pull them aside and say, hey, is everything okay? You seem a little off today. What can I do to be able to help, right? That aspect, and constantly checking those individuals is a critical component. So again, I think that morning meeting, to really kind of understand where my leaders are at, and how that's translating to the teammates that report up to them, which ultimately are then touched by the patients, right? And so having that era of calmness is critical in an emergency environment. So you got a patient that's coming in, let's just say they're experiencing acute psychoses, right? And to be able to treat that versus the individual that has been struggling with depression for some time and is finally a family member found them right before they were about to do something to harm themselves.
Yeah.
Right. To be able to understand, the treatment between those two is a little bit different, and the engagement is there, but the manner in which the treatment is implemented needs to be calm and consistent every time.
Awesome. You've been on both sides of service, breaking things down and helping people heal.
Yeah.
What does healing mean to you now?
Oh man, healing is such a challenging word because, and that's something that I feel that I really have to work on a daily basis. Where are you doing enough? Are you impacting enough lives? Could you do better in some department? Healing to me would be able to kind of calm those negative, intrusive thoughts. And this is just specific to me. When I feel that I'm operating well, I'm not having kind of negative, intrusive thoughts as much. And I feel that my team is jiving. So healing to me, I think, would be when you feel supported, when you feel that you're making a positive impact and there's meaning behind everything that you're doing. And I think healing will be a different definition for everyone, but that's just what it is for me.
Yeah. You've helped many veterans and families find behavioral health care. What have you learned about the invisible battles veterans face after service?
When you say helping many veterans and their family members, the rush, that is the thing that charges my batteries the most. Like there's some aspects when you're looking at P&Ls and challenges with implementing electronic medical records that are happening in the hospital and implementing multiple things. When you get a call or that you've been able to help a vet or their family members be able to seek treatment, or someone a loved one in general, there is a sense of kind of like an endorphin that hits my body that I've never been able to replicate in anything that I've ever done before in my life. So that is what I'm most passionate about and what really recharges my batteries. Sorry, what was your original question? Because again,
You helped many veterans and families find behavioral health care.
Yeah.
What have you learned about the invisible battles veterans face after service?
The individuals that are quiet and not are actively seeking help are the ones generally that need it the most. The ones that are a little bit more out that are say, hey, I'm struggling, right? Those are the ones that I feel are the individuals that have that are more apt to be able to receive the treatment. But it's the ones where you get a phone call, hey, I got a buddy, Tom, I serve with, and I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks. And I normally hear from him every 3 days or something like that. And I haven't heard anything about him. I'm really, really nervous about him. His wife called me. The ones that kind of go off grid and isolate, those are the ones that I feel is the most challenging to be able to kind of make contact with and be able to get them implemented. Those are the ones that really kind of keep me up from that perspective. So isolation, I guess what I would say from the veteran perspective is when they kind of just stop talking and stop engaging, that's the time that the red lights need to start being, and then the flags. I'm like, hey, we need to do something about it because it generally doesn't have a good outcome afterwards from that perspective.
Yeah. This is a good transition to talk about Mesa Springs Hospital. Let's talk about Mesa Springs Hospital. What do you guys, what do y'all do?
Sure.
And then programs that you have that you're really excited about.
Yeah.
And all that kind of good stuff.
Mesa Springs has been in existence from in 2014 when it was opened. We're a 72-bed inpatient hospital, as well as we have 3 outpatient sites. We treat on the inpatient side for individuals that are experiencing acute crisis. We treat ages 12 and up. One of the things I'm most excited about moving forward in January is we're going to have a dedicated 12-bed unit to our heroes, right? So in order to be admitted to this unit, you have to either be a veteran, active duty, a frontline healthcare worker, like a nurse, a doctor, working actively in the frontline healthcare, or a first responder. So a police officer, EMS, fire department. Those are the only individuals that will be able to be admitted to that particular unit, right? And they receive their specialized training associated, or the therapeutic services that are geared specifically towards them. So staff are specifically trained with that, different kind of a schedule routine for them. We currently have a Heroes outpatient, which is thriving. I would say of the ones where we gauge a lot of our success with our patients coming back, right? Because again, voluntary therapy is something that it's a personal choice, whether or not you choose to come back and engage in that. And the individuals that come back are actually getting something from that. Our Heroes outpatient program is by far our most engaged, with like a 95% individuals that are coming on a daily basis to be able to work with their therapist. So we already have that place on our outpatient side, but the implementation of our inpatient side, which is what we're going to be doing in January. So those individuals that are in acute crisis, that is what man, it's just like a culmination of. When I talk about when I was working overnight, going through nursing school, right? Everything, that culmination from that moment to where we are now, this feels like this is what I've been put in the position and been able to help get this implemented. That's what is kind of the culmination of everything. And so what I'm so excited about. But get back to your question. So the 72 beds that we have, we treat adolescents on the inpatient side as well as adults. And then outpatient, we treat a child starting at the ages of 8. We've got a location in Fort Worth on Camp Bowie, and then we've got another location in Arlington. And again, our on-site, which is specifically for adults, which our Help for Heroes is a component of that too as well. And our Help for Heroes component is actually part of a national organization where there's Help for Heroes hospitals that are associated with LifePoint Health, which is our parent corporation. Around the United States. And so what I was really excited is we were able to get the Help for Heroes unit in my hospital. And so it's led by some amazing individuals that are just on a daily basis, just 100% focused in getting our heroes placement on a daily basis. There are individuals flying in from Germany, overseas on bases. Our first responders are coming into our hospitals for treatments and things like that. And it's just a blessing.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Like, it started off in psych ward, and now you're the CEO of a hospital, and now you're implementing a program for veterans, and inpatient and outpatient programs that are really, really thriving and going to grow. You know, and that's such. When you think about that journey, when you think of the stuff we just walked through, and now you're at that place where you're like, okay, here's this, does this a veteran program, like, would it be part of your legacy? That
oh man, 100%. Like I said, and I know that the individuals I report to, they are exhausted about my tempo with this and how long I've been talking about this. Because like I said, this is what recharges my batteries. And when you find out, like the way you've been able to implement this and touch with so many veterans and individuals listening to your podcast, I can tell this is what recharges your batteries. This is what recharges my batteries, being able to implement this and see individuals be able to be connected, be able to get the treatment. And the friendships and camaraderie you make along the way, working with amazing organizations. Can I give a shout out to a few organizations? So like One Tribe Foundation, Big Country Veterans, they're led by amazing individuals that genuinely, truly care. Having the opportunity to be able to work with their leadership, to be able, because that's generally where, if you kind of think of it, it's not people calling directly to my hospital. It's because, I know Mike Groman or I know Jake Schick, they give me a phone call and say, look, I've got a buddy in Arizona that just gave me a call. and he really needs some help, right? How can we get him some help, right? It's not because they're going through that process, even though we have a channel for individuals to reach out to us directly. It's those organizations that you build relationships with, where you stand across from, the way that you and I are looking right now, and we're looking into each other's eyes, that if you call me or you text me and you say you've got somebody that needs some help, I'm going to pick up that phone, and I'm going to do everything I can to be able to get them the help that they need. Because if you're calling me and it's important to you, it's going to be important to me, right? And so to be able to build those relationships with organizations is absolutely critical.
Well, wait, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the one organization that brought us two together, which is Air Power Foundation.
Yes.
So we got to give them a shout out.
Yeah.
Tell me about what Air Power Foundation.
I'm totally going to air some dirty laundry there. I knew nothing about Air Power Foundation until I met Melissa Dobby, the executive director over there. And immediately when I talked to her and understood the passion that she has for helping our vets, and it was a no-brainer to be able to connect with her. And she's helping us work through to be able to get something launched with American Hat Company, where our individuals graduating from our Heroes program are going to be given American hat, the cowboy hat company.
Wow.
Excited about that, right? And so just a token. And so those types of relationships to be able to address that. And if you've never been to an Air Power Foundation event, you were missing out, because they know how to throw a good party and connect the right individuals in order to be able to get things across and be able to really to be able to make some significant improvements into veterans and active duty's lives. And so, I appreciate you circling back, because I think I would have left this podcast upset that I didn't mention Air Power Foundation, because we were at the Sky Bowl together, and man, what a great time.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. I was surprised they played my song at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, I start crying and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question for you. If someone walked through Mesa Springs years from now, and you were gone, what would you want them to feel that says you once led there?
Oh, man, the Heroes program, Mesa is a special hospital. I heard a statistic, I haven't been able to verify it, but I actually heard it from my boss's boss, that the average tenure for a behavioral health CEO is 1.5 years, right? So a lot of turnover that happens, a lot of moving different pieces. But the average time that an individual, fortunately, I've been with Mesa for just right at 3 years. I've been that, but my predecessor was CEO there for 10 years, right? So it's something really unheard that you're remaining in that particular position. So a lot of steady leadership. And I think, we talked about that piece where you walked into Mesa and you felt that, right?
Yeah.
There's a feeling, right? That I think is really what I would like to ensure, that when I knew that Barbara, who was the previous CEO, there was a feeling of being honored to be in a position to lead Mesa Springs. And the day that I'm stepping out of that CEO position, whenever that may be, whether I'm dragged out or have a heart attack or what have you, or wherever that replacement is, that comes from that perspective, that they feel honored to be working at Mesa Springs. Because I genuinely, and I may be biased, I took that job at Mesa Springs because I knew they were the best, right? And it was kind of that culmination to be able to move those pieces from that perspective. But having worked as a consultant, having worked at multiple different behavioral health organizations, Mesa Springs in the DFW area was always had that reputation of being the best. And so I would hope that whoever comes into that situation would be would feel that, and I would have continued that type of reputation that I had walking into them.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you,
Drew, my brother.
Yeah.
Man, like it's so first of all, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. I think, just sitting down, like I said, I had admiration and respect for you because you're working in the behavioral health field. That's something that resonates in my heart and my head and my soul and all that, who I am today.
Yeah.
I would change my life. And so I have admiration and respect to your dedication and your commitment, and also to the, flipping the narrative on its head, this hard exterior of a Marine and,
Sure.
and turn it into something,
Yeah.
a place for healing.
Yeah, vulnerability. You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I have, it's just amazing, man. And and I love you as a brother and a friend, and it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much, Rush. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, guys, that's it for Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. As I always say, have peace and the light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.
Unfinished business, stand up tall.